Hi, I'm Shayna Blum, and I just want to say I'm really happy to be here. And I do have to say that the presentations today have been incredible. Myself have learned a lot, and you know, the idea is that we come together, we talk about our ideas, and perhaps we feel inspired to, you know, bring some things into our own work. So basically, to start off, about a year ago, I was living in Saudi Arabia. And at that time, I had been there for about 2 years, and I was working on a project looking into what we call the linguistic landscape. And if you think about what a linguistic landscape is, it's basically the typographic signage within our environment. So street signs, storefronts, store signs, advertisement billboards, etc. And as typographers, you know, our job is to create these signs. We're creating the, you know, the signs, the symbols that go onto these signs to communicate messages to people or to audiences. Within that project, I was dealing with more of a bilingual system. I was noticing that the signage was predominantly Arabic and English, and I was curious as to why this was the case. Anyway, long story short, when I was living in Saudi Arabia, I was doing a lot of traveling around the Middle East. And as an American Jew, I often went to Israel. In Israel, I noticed that in certain locations, there tended to be this signage that showed basically language preference. It did not show equality that the signage was showing in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And I thought that this was very interesting. The languages that are used in the signage in Israel are Hebrew, Arabic, and English. So what I did for this project is I really was exploring the signage within 3 of the main urban communities. One being Jerusalem, which is actually divided between East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem. East Jerusalem is Arab, West Jerusalem is Jewish. Tel Aviv, which is predominantly a Jewish city, and Haifa, which is a mix of Arab and Jewish. And questions that I was asking myself for this project were, what's the purpose of multilingual signage, typographic signage within these communities? What are the similarities and differences between the multilingual texts? You know, are there hierarchies, are there inequalities, etc.? How is the use of multilingual typographic signage within Israel developed over time? And how does the typographic layout present hierarchy? And does the hierarchy of language differ in these specific locations? To start out, so as I said, you know, the study of these signs is really named the linguistic landscape. And to me, typography is basically language in visual context. So you're taking a language which is more or less oral, a form of communication, and then you're putting it into visual context to present a message to the viewer. And when I went ahead with this project, you know, one thing that we need to keep in mind is that we are now becoming a globalized society. And in most countries, the way that it's developed now is that signage is created where you have one official language, one national language, and then you have it followed by English as a secondary or international language. And this is, becoming, it's just more common as we develop in this type of globalized society. So these are just some examples of street signs where you can see the typography is being utilized. So here at the top we have Hebrew, followed by Arabic, followed by English. Now, if you were to think about hierarchy in this presentation, listing-wise, we do have Hebrew at the top, followed by Arabic, followed by English. However, in terms of the sizing of the letter forms and the alignment, English actually becomes the dominating, the dominating language for the sign. Here, this is actually an example at one of the markets where you have more or less equality of Hebrew and Arabic, and this was in Haifa, which, as I mentioned, has an equal population of Arabic and Jewish. This is obviously written, typographic work. And then this is a presentation, which is, this image is taken from Old Jerusalem. And you can see at the top you have the Hebrew, followed by the Arabic, followed by the English or the Latin letter forms. What you notice, or what I noticed in most of the images that I had taken, and I had taken several hundred images for this project, is that Hebrew and English tended to be equal in their importance, whereas Arabic was seen as secondary. And again, even though it's listed second, it's still significantly, it's smaller, it's thinner line weight, and then in terms of the alignment, it's kind of squished there in the middle. So it becomes secondary in your vision. Basically, one thing to note is if you know the history of Israel or Palestine, initially Palestine was controlled by the British. And here in 1922, it was stated that all signage within the cities of Israel or Palestine must be created to show English, Arabic, and Hebrew. And it went just in that order. English being the language of the British Mandate, Arabic being the language of the majority at that time, and then Hebrew being the language of the minority, the Jewish minority at the time. What ended up happening was in 1948, Israel became a Jewish state. And when that happened, language preference changed. And basically it was decided that Hebrew would become the dominating language, followed by Arabic, and then English last. All the signage was changed to reflect this. And what's important to note is that the use of Hebrew was very important because the idea behind it was that it was going to unify a group of people who had been displaced in various countries for a length of time. And the language in itself was going to be used to create this, what is it, like a nationalistic system, so a community. So everybody's speaking the same language, reading the same language, and understanding the same text. In Israel right now, Hebrew is the official language. It's used in government, commerce, their parliament, which is the Knesset. It's used for court sessions, schools, and universities. Everybody is required to study Hebrew, even if you are in an Arabic school. And in order to go to universities, you must pass a Hebrew matriculation test. So whether you're Jewish or you're Arab, you must have a certain fluency in Hebrew. In terms of Arabic, Arabic is seen as the secondary language, and the people who speak Arabic are going to be Israeli Arabs or Palestinian Arabs who are living in East Jerusalem. They're also going to be Druze, Israeli Druze, and then Marazi and Yemenite Jews. Basically, Arabic is studied also in the schools, however, even in the Jewish schools, however, it's brought at a later time. So whereas Hebrew is introduced to the curriculum in elementary, Arabic is introduced to a curriculum in secondary schools. There have been laws passed to make it so that Arabic is seen as, is seen more within this society and is not as secondary as it is right now to the Hebrew. However, even if you look at, I'm posting these slides with, the images of the photographs that I've taken to kind of show you guys the way that these signs are being created, integrating the three languages. Here, there is somewhat a sense of equality. Well, actually, not really, but it's an attempt for equality in the Hebrew, Arabic. The English, is obviously secondary as it's placed on a line on its own. The letter forms are distinctly smaller than the Hebrew. However, you can see the Hebrew distinctly dominating the signage, the Hebrew letter forms, and that the largest word is up top, Signage, and then followed by a line of text. Underneath is the Arabic, and again, the Arabic, the alignment of the Arabic, it's kind of pushed in, equal on both sides, and then the letter forms themselves, the line weight is much thinner in comparison to the Hebrew. English, going into English and Latin letter forms is basically, I don't want to run out of time, but basically, English was used initially when the British Mandate was in power in Israel, Palestine. In 1948, when Israel became a state, they really tried to decrease the use of English because it signified the mandate and colonial state. What ends up happening is that during the 60s, Israel forms a very tight connection with the US. And with that, there's a rediscovery or more English brought into the system. Even now, Israel is heavily, most people in Israel do speak English, and they speak it very fluently. The type of English that they do speak is American English, the American accent. And the reason being has to do with the West or the American culture being utilized within their system. So whether it's through mass media, television, or the connection between Israeli Jews and American Jews. Israel and America have a very close connection. And as I state here, most Israelis do speak and read English with superior skills, equivalent to an American. Here's a nice, statement. Basically, typography is more than legibility and aesthetic presentation. It is the visual power of a word and language. And then it is the embodiment of a culture's identity. And that's something I think that, a few people have touched on that today, but that's something extremely significant. And that language really is an identity of a community. I know that when I'm sitting at a table with a group of people and they're speaking Spanish and I don't understand them, I feel a disconnect from them. Um, we're all kind of linked together through language. And with that, as I stated before, typography is visual language. It's taking this oral dialogue and it's turning into a visual form, visual content. So the way that we present these letter forms to the public is extremely significant and extremely important. And, you know, in the case, if you look here, once again, you know, Hebrew and English are dominating this sign. This is an issue. This is a problem because it's basically stating that certain languages are more important than other languages, which might add to other hostilities. This is a sign that's actually taken from East Jerusalem. So again, you do see Hebrew at the top, and it's followed by Arabic. However, at this point, the Arabic is making an attempt to have the same line weights, to have the same alignment, to be somewhat equal to the Hebrew. The English is presented last, and technically the English is, or the Latin letter forms are an equality to the Hebrew, if not more dominating. So when thinking about these letter forms and how to, you know, have them work together in this multilingual signage, I wanted to go over some similarities and differences. So the first thing is similarities between Hebrew and Arabic. They're both Semitic languages, so they both are going to read from right to left, which is different from English Latin script, which reads left to right. They actually are very similar in their oral and their character forms. So there's certain letters, or there's certain letters that are pronounced the same. There's also certain letter characters that when the Arabic is separated, because Arabic, the way that it's written, it's all in script, but when you separate the Arabic characters, they actually have similarities to the Hebrew characters. The other similarities is that both languages do rely on character systems below, above, and within the letter forms in order to give a sense of vowel sounds and pronunciations. Between the Latin and Hebrew letter forms, there are these similarities dealing with the fact that each character is presented separate from the other character, so there is negative space in between. They do both have similar X heights if you present the English character in its capital form. So these are just some similarities. In terms of differences, one of the biggest difference is that it's a script. And basically the letter forms, some words will be spelled out where the letter forms are separate. However, the majority of letter forms are spelled out in a script. And so each letter connects to one another. The other issue with Arabic in comparison to Latin and Hebrew is that Arabic is going to be presented more on a horizontal format. English and Hebrew letter forms are more linear on a vertical form, where Arabic is really formed horizontally. This issue actually creates a problem when you're working with Arabic and Latin letter forms. The Latin letter forms set at the same point size as the Arabic script will look completely larger. It'll look dominating to the Arabic script. So any designer working with these two systems needs to be aware that, okay, well, we need to increase the size, the point size of the Arabic script in order to create equality with the Latin letter forms. So basically, again, just dealing with typographic hierarchy, some things that we look at when we're thinking about typographic hierarchy is one, the listing of the languages. In this case, we see that that word, that darna, even though it might be an Arabic word, it's being spelled out in English. And this is actually taken in Haifa. So this is an Arabic establishment. The listing of words. So here you have English followed by Arabic followed by Hebrew. We're also looking at the line widths of the letter forms. We're looking at the sizing of the letter forms. We're looking at the color of the characters. We're looking at the spacing of the characters and the alignment. When I was doing my research and I was taking these photographs and going through the photographs, what I really observed is that there's 4 different systems of multilingual signage within Israel. So the first one would be English, Arabic, and Hebrew. So English, Arabic, Hebrew last. The next one would be Arabic listed first, Hebrew second, English last. Then you have Hebrew, Arabic, English, Hebrew, English, and Arabic. And these are all systems of hierarchy within the multilingual signs. Most of that is occurring depending on, one, the location of where that signage is, and two, who the owner of the sign is. So if it's a municipal sign, owned by the government, then English or Hebrew is going to dominate. This particular sign is, again, in East Jerusalem, and this is a location where you have many tourists from Western cultures, staying at hotels, etc. And so you see a sign here where English is actually, it's the top level, or the Latin letter forms are on the top level of the signage. It's then followed by Arabic, which is more or less similar in the weight of the letter forms. And then that is then followed by Hebrew last. The alignment is all same. And most, really in all 3 languages, there's equality in the sizing of the text, the width of the text, etc. Here, again, we see a complete equality. However, this piece is in Haifa, and so here we see the Arabic at the top, Hebrew secondary, English at the bottom. Again, the line width is more or less similar, trying to be the same. Size of the letter forms is the same. The alignment is the same. This is in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is a city that's predominantly Jewish. And so this particular piece, we see that the Hebrew dominates the signage. It reads Hebrew, Arabic, English, Latin letter forms, and you can see that in the center where the Arabic letter forms are presented, they basically look minuscule in comparison to the Hebrew. To me, something like this is a problem because it basically states that it does show the language preference within a specific location. And it shows it to an extent which is slightly inappropriate. Here, this is taken in Jerusalem. And again, we do see equality in terms of the width, the sizing, the alignment of the letter forms. However, we do see that listing of Hebrew first, English second, and Arabic last. So basically, conclusion, why did I do this project? What does it matter? The reason why this matters to me, why I worked on this project is obviously I have some personal interest in this issue. And, you know, I do believe that typography, it's not just about being a graphic designer to, market a brand or to be a designer to make things look good. But, we study design, we study typography to also be aware of what typography and what design can actually do within a community and system. We know that Israel is a very controversial country, especially right now. And we know that there are issues between the Jews of Israel and the Arabs of Israel. And we know that, every little thing can create some sort of tension. I would say that a sign like this is inappropriate. The reason why I would say that a sign like this is inappropriate is because technically Hebrew and Arabic are both the official languages of Israel. To have Hebrew listed first, followed by English, followed by Arabic last, which is completely smaller than the other two languages, it's not right. And it says something to a group of people that might give some negative connotations. So I guess I've been listening to a lot of presentations here, and I've heard, that you are dealing with multiple scripts, you're dealing with multiple languages in India. And these would be some things that I would think about when dealing with multilingual signage is, I guess I'm an idealist in that I believe that you should include everybody and make everybody happy. But I do think that it's very important to think about, well, what is the most important language being presented here? In America, the most important language is English. However, here, is that really the most important language? The same in Israel, really there needs to be equality between Hebrew and Arabic. English can be that secondary language. So for my conclusion, as I stated, I would like to see more equality in the signs within the linguistic landscape of Israel. I'd also like to see equality in signage, throughout the globe when dealing with multiple scripts. And that's what I think should happen for the future. So anyway, thank you. I hope I didn't go over too much.